You don't choose your parents. I only remember my father belting me, bashing me, breaking things on me. My parents were interesting characters. My father was born in 1936 and my mother in 1952. 16 years is a big age difference. But that was my father. He loved the younger girls. My father's parents were peasants, so you could say he didn't know any better. Somehow he ended up in Germany. He was a welder and he adored German discipline and accuracy. Again, I have no idea why he came back or what he earned. Zero information whatsoever. I have no idea how my parents met either. To be honest, I don't know how they even contemplated being together in the first place. I would like to say something more about my parents. However, their entire story is murky because it was always hidden and never spoken in front of me. When I look back at my childhood, there were a million unknown things about my parents. Do I blame them for not sharing more with me? Most probably. Perhaps if I had known more, I could have understood what was happening in their heads and why they were behaving in certain ways. I was an unwanted child. Born into a family I never understood. I only had one sibling. My parents chose to love my brother, yet displayed nothing but loathing, anger and rage towards me. There was no feeling the love from my parents. Imagine a 2-bedroom apartment with all 4 of us inside. I remember my father would wake up at 4:30 in the morning and start work at 6 a.m. He would wake up, make himself a black Turkish coffee and sit down on a table day after day, night after night. The apartment stank from cigarette smoke from early morning. Then my mom would rise around 5 a.m. after my dad had made coffee and woken her up. They had their coffee together, scheming together. They both worked in the same factory, call it Candid. They made sugar, candies and chocolates. Nothing involved me and I was not concerned. We never had a car. My father could walk to work in 15 minutes. I would get around by bike. I never understood why my parents could not get a car. Later, I discovered a car was luxury for them, while 5 packets of smokes per day were not. My father was a fragile build, very short with his big ears and big nose like a little mouse. He was afraid of his own shadow, and the only way he would express emotion was by punishing me. He was brutal. I don't remember any loving behavior. I only remember my father belting me, bashing me, breaking things on me, and breaking my bed frame. He would come to my bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and punch me in the face for no reason. I was just a kid. I was 5 or 6 years old. It was quite typical for parents in communism to smash, kick and slap their kids, but my father took it to another level. It was not just the way he would walk into my room to punch me in the face just because he could. Some of the things he did to me bordered on insanity. He was a man with a sheer dedication to destroying and torturing me day after day. I think he deserved the Oscar for creativity in brutality and sadism. I can laugh about it today because I know that kids can be raised without that kind of brutality. I could have turned out like my father, but I did not. I remember in 1979, I got my first bike. However, before I got my bike, my father belted me so hard that I bled, just to remind me how much he sacrificed to get me the bike. All that he loved was a beer, coffee, and my mom. He also had a big mouth and was always going on about what we should doing and that we should kill this and that. Every day would consist of my mother bashing me in the morning and then my father bashing me after work and at night. There was no need for my parents to punch me in the face or to belt me. No, they just did because they could. I learned that my mom, despite being born in a good family, had gone into the hairdressing, as her father was trying to hide her in this kind of job. She was a compulsive liar and kleptomaniac, stealing from people and their homes. That was her way of life. In communist Yugoslavia, school and education is free. You could have as much a sick leave as you wanted, as so long as you could provide a medical certificate. It was a traditional model, with my mother always looking after the children. My mom was always taking sick leave. Despite this, if I was sick, she would send me to school, while she would stay at home for 3 months. That was my mom. She got paid and I got sent to school. If she ever did have to look after me, she would play the victim, as it meant she could not work. When you were born with your parents like mine, you look at the other parents and feel sad that you are an unwanted kid. I realized from an early age that my parents would rather spend money on all the smokes and alcohol their money could buy. They would never keep promises, and you would never have better sneakers, new trousers, or a new school bag. Nothing. All I had was a dream. As a child, I always dreamt one day I'd have better life. Starting with better sneakers. A pair of Nikes was more like science fiction than a dream for me. When I was growing up, only a very lucky few had been able to get hold of things like Nike or Adidas sneakers, or Fila and Reebok tracksuits. And I remember in September and October, my parents would buy hundreds of kilos of potatoes, capsicum and tomatoes that my mom would make into sauces. Then in November, they would eventually kill the biggest pig on the planet, then prepare the meat. We will have small bits of meat so it would last us until April or May, always accompanied by the freshest juice we could buy. I couldn't imagine asking my father to buy fresh meat in the shops. He would destroy me. Anyway, in the late 70s and 80s, there were big restrictions on things like petrol, coffee, cooking oil, and sugar, etc. And I used to stand in front of the shops for 8, 9, 10 hours at a time, just waiting in line so my mom could come and trade places with me. It was a bad time. There were shortages of everything. It is hard to imagine now, waiting in line for hours just to get essentials. We didn't know anything different. Communism was bad, but we could not rebel or speak out about our unhappiness. The first 6 years of my life were tragic. However, what came next was even worse. Not a Christmas to wish for. What kind of human kicks their child out on a cold Christmas Eve? Just because you can. In Croatia, churches were common, but they were also very empty places. Church doors were open and mostly you'd only see very old people in there. Hardly any middle-aged or younger people would go. I didn't know what the church was. I was born into a very poor family. They didn't have the faith in anything except total negativity. My father hated everybody. He was always envious and jealous. Imagine every morning you wake up, instead of having your parents wish you good morning, they say, "Today it's going to be a terrible day." We never practiced any religious holidays like Christmas or Easter. I do remember one thing about Christmas and Easter growing up. They were always very sad days. Instead of celebrating, my parents would fight constantly. I'd be drunk from the early morning. I used to watch the kids in my street at the Christmas and Easter. They get home some presents and be rewarded somehow by their parents, cousins and siblings. I don't remember seeing many people going into church or practicing faith. As a child, there were two men who changed my life. One was my grandfather, who gave me some support. He didn't know how to say he loved me, but I knew he did. He would hug me and give me money to buy food. He would tell me in a nice way, "Don't do these things, don't throw people, don't steal, don't lie." He never directly said, "Do not be like my daughter." My grandfather didn't go to church, but he did believe in God. I'm pretty sure he would pray, but being a high-ranking party member and a part of secret communist police, he was not allowed to go into church. If he had, it would have been used against him in some shape or form. The second man was a priest called Matteo. I became altar boy almost by chance. I was born Roman Catholic and be baptized, but it was really just an excuse for my parents to drink and celebrate. They never practiced the faith and never went to church or masses. Once, when I was a young boy, only 5 or 6 years old, I ran into church to hide from being bullied, being called fatso, being ridiculed by all the boys. I was just a kid, and I was alone. My knees and elbows were bleeding and I was covered in scratches. There was a nice nun at the door. She asked me, "Son, what are you doing?" I was afraid. I'd never seen a nun in my life. I remember I told her some lies. She told me, "Come inside and watch a movie." So I went inside. There was a strong smell of incense, but it was incredibly clean. It was a movie about Jesus. There was a big old projector and a few other kids there in the dark. And I began falling in love with the idea of going to church. I became the altar boy, and the priest, Mate, was a very nice man. He was a good priest and he trusted me. I thought it was awesome place. The church was awesome place. Somebody was showing me that I don't need to be afraid of expressing myself, and that there are the people who love me. They knew I was lost in a kind of space. The beautiful thing was that Mate was showing me the way like my grandfather had, without ever telling me, I love you. It gave me the confidence to do things. I would collect the money, run the mass, take responsibility, and have accountability. I really love it. I remember every word that the priest said at Mass. I really liked everything that happened at the church. It was very peaceful and I loved the flowers. Everybody was nice to me even when I was naughty. Other kids didn't know that I was going to church. I would certainly have been made fun of and called a liar. Many kids didn't go in church anyway, as their parents were members of the Communist Party. One day, Priest Mate told my dad that I was a good boy and all I needed was a little love. My father didn't know what to say, but he did know what to do when the priest left. He bashed me. It was coming up to Christmas 1986. I was 14 years old. Every year the factory my parents worked in organized a Christmas event for the children, giving gifts with the sweets, candles, books and toys. My parents didn't tell me about this. That evening, by pure chance, I remember I was walking around the suburb. I went inside the factory. I saw the kids getting presents. I wanted a present, and I knew I should get one. So, I walked up onto stage, following the other children. I remember people whispering, and I could imagine that my name was not on a list. But some gentlemen told me to sit in Santa's lap. They took a picture as well. Needless to say that following day, my father found all of this out and broke a chair on me. Then my mother came back from work that evening, took the biggest wooden spoon which they used to cook jam and broke it on my knee. That was just a few days before Christmas. I was in such a pain. I just wanted to die. I just wanted to run away. I remember it was snowing a lot. It was outside. And there was no mobile phones, no Twitter, no Facebook, nothing. I had nobody to call, nobody to talk to. I was just staring through the window, watching the snow. My nose was bleeding, and my knee was broken. I did not dare ask anything else. I had fought to save my gift from Santa Claus, and my father just threw it in the garbage. This is how my dream was being killed. At that point, I did not have any anger. I did not have any feelings at all, except sadness and being in pain. A few days later, it was Christmas Eve. I came home from school and was waiting for my mom to make me dinner. My parents were looking at each other. I just felt something was wrong. My father took my school bag and pulled me out the few things I had eaten. He grabbed me by throat, lifted me clean off the floor. He threw me out down the stairs and told me not to come back home ever again. It was very cold. People were coming from the shops. They were buying last-minute things for Christmas. And I was standing in the mall on my own. I think my teeth were frozen, or at least that is the best way I can describe. I had been kicked out in just a t-shirt and track pants. I was standing in the snow with my school bag and few of my things inside. Everybody was avoiding me like I had the plague. It was really hard to comprehend all of this. My grandfather appeared, well dressed like a man of the statue. He wiped the blood on my face, took his coat off to give it to me, then took me to his home. I still remember the way my grandfather's wife Rose just looked at me. She gave me food and washed me. She told me, "You are going to sleep here, and tomorrow morning we will do something else." What kind of people were my parents? What kind of human kicks their child out on a cold on Christmas Eve just because you can? At least I knew that my grandfather loved me and was going to do everything he could to protect me. The following day, this man who loved me, who'd imparted his values and beliefs to me, told me the plan to send me away to school, where I would learn skills, be respected by society, and most importantly, become independent from my parents.